Welcome to the Heads Together podcast. I'm your host, Jill Mokes, and this week, this is a personal one for me. I am joined this week by Kris Burbank, who is my dear client and friend and fellow special needs mum. Kris is also, as well as an all-round fabulous human, she is an author, a certified leadership coach, and she's the proud mum of 3 adult kids, including Andrew, who has cerebral palsy. Kris actually retrained as a leadership coach during the pandemic, and in doing so, she realized that actually there were so many of the things she was covering in that retraining that were really relevant to parents. And that has become her mission, is really to help parents through the journey of parenting young people with special needs. She helps parents make themselves matter more. She helps them face their fears. She helps them get out of their kids' way, a common thing that we tend to do. She helps them build confidence, and she helps people learn to embrace what normal looks like for them. She has co-authored a book called Embracing Another Normal, which I will link to in the show notes. And she has now also brought to life an online digital course, which is also entitled Embracing Another Normal, which is really an incredible realization of the mission that Kris has been on to provide the support that up until now really hasn't been there for parents of young people, particularly young adults as well. It's not just small children. So I'm very excited to talk to Kris today. The way she brought this course about was nothing short of inspirational. This is not a program where she is just teaching theoretical best practices around bringing up a child with special needs. Kris has interviewed an incredible number of parents, of medical professionals, of teachers, of other caregivers to really pull together some real talk around what the journey is like for parents of kids with special needs. I think we say it too often, but this will change lives. I know it. It's exactly what I wished had existed when James was younger. You know, James, my son, who has severe autism, when he was younger, I used to be terrified of the future. I was so scared. I had no idea what a positive picture of a future for us might look like. I would be filled with dread thinking about the future. And I would have given anything to have a resource like this to be able to give me that hope and that optimism for what my future with my family could look like. I hope it doesn't sound condescending, but I'm so proud of Kris for what she's done in bringing this to life. And now I'm so excited to share her with you and to share this conversation with you. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Heads Together podcast. I'm Jill Mokes, and I am obsessed with cutting through the noise when it comes to growing your business. Each week, via intimate coaching conversations and inspirational stories, I share what it really takes to get the results you want in a way that feels right to you. I am all about attracting higher ticket opportunities, building authentic relationships, and creating the abundant, full-fat version of your dream business. I mean, how many of us have beavered away creating a light version of what we really want? The thing is, I honestly believe when you're outstanding at what you do, there is no limit to what you can achieve. So, are you ready to put our heads together and make it happen? Let's go. Hey, Kris, welcome.
Thank you.
How are you?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
Oh my goodness. I am so happy you're here. I'm going to be honest. I am beyond excited for this episode because this is one that is so dear to and close to both of our hearts. The topic we're going to be talking about today, it means so much to both of us. And And to be honest with you, I'm really excited to share about our relationship and how that has developed also in the time we've worked together. When I was introducing you just now, you are primarily a parent, but you are also a coach and an author. And so when we first met, it was because we worked together for some business coaching. You were in the process of finishing your book and you wanted to create an online program. Can you tell me a little bit about what led you to me, if you like, in the first place and where you were at that time?
Sure. So, first of all, thank you for being here and for everything you've done. I think you've helped me think about my world, my life, my gifts in just a transformational way. So that begins us on this journey, right? I'm a parent. I am the parent of 3 adult kids. The middle child, who's not a child, he's a man now, is a 27-year-old man with severe cerebral palsy. Over the course of his life and the lives of my other 2 kids, almost 3 decades, I have encountered so many amazing people. I've learned so much about myself. And so during the pandemic, I decided to go back to school and to get a certificate in leadership coaching. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I thought I might coach leaders in a variety of different spaces like the nonprofit world or corporate sector. I think the world needs better leaders. But what I quickly learned was that everything that I was learning about leadership and leadership coaching could be applied to parents because parents are leaders in their homes, in their families, in their jobs, communities. So I quickly decided to expand what I was doing and serve parents and specifically parents of young people with disabilities.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was approached to co-write this book with Dr. Linda Hoops, and it's all about resilience and helping families with disability build resilience. And then I was referred because I was struggling with what is this business of mine going to be? And there aren't enough hours in the day to do everything I want to do. I was referred to you to help me focus and streamline. And then lo and behold, I realized that not only did we have all these things in common professionally, but our personal lives had a lot of similarities.
Absolutely.
Then the conversation ensued about, well, how else can you take what you're developing and share it with parents like us? And so the online course was born.
Absolutely. I mean, it was amazing, wasn't it, really? Because I think we really clicked together and I mean, we're both coaches, so we know that a lot of the success or failure in a coaching relationship is how well you click together and, you know, how much you like each other, to be perfectly frank.
Yeah.
It is a real factor in how successful your coaching partnership will be. And I think we really clicked from day one. And that just got cemented by this shared experience we had of motherhood that hasn't looked like most people's experience. And that's the truth. You know, our experience of motherhood has looked profoundly different to most people's. And we really bonded over that joint experience. And I can still remember at the time you were hoping to interview some people for the book and then subsequently for the program. And God, that was a really transformational for me, to be quite honest, to have someone say, do you know what, I'd really like to hear your story. And that opened a bit of a floodgate for me because I had never really told the story of how I felt about parenting James. So for anyone who's listening who doesn't already know, my son James, who's 27, is severely autistic. So he is mostly nonverbal. You know, he has echolalic speech. He's the absolute love of my life and also the bane of my life at the same time. Yeah, we really bonded over that joint experience, didn't we? And that formed it's formed a beautiful friendship between us, really, that goes way beyond any kind of coaching relationship, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember connecting. We talked a little bit about business and then we both sort of tiptoed around this. When do I introduce this personal thing that we have in common? And then once the door was open, it was like, oh, don't hold back. And we talked. And I think what's interesting is you have these things in common as a parent in terms of what you go through with your child. But then you also have these things in common about like what you've gone through. What's my identity? What do I want for my life? What do I hope for, the other relationships that I have besides the relationship with my child? And I think witnessing that in you and seeing sort of how I responded in that situation gave me hope that like, oh, wow, there are people out there for whom this course and this book could really make an impact. So it helped me personally, but it also solidified my desire professionally to like put this stuff out there.
Oh, I love that you say that, because I'm going to be honest with you. So the name of the book and the program, the course that Kris has put together is Embracing Another Normal. And Kris, honestly, when you first started telling me about the course, my overwhelming feeling was I would have given anything for that to have existed when I was bringing up James. Because something I really remember so vividly is not having any kind of image of what comes next. I don't know if this is the same in the States, but over here, there's a ton of provision for small children with autism. And so there was lots of support when James was a toddler. And when he first started school, there was it was pretty much a lot of support. But I didn't know what his teenagers or his adult life were going to look like. More than that, I didn't know where to go to ask. I didn't have that kind of network around me, which I know forms part of the course that you've put together, is around, how to build this network, how to find the help you need, how to ask for it, how to recognize it, how to focus on the other relationships. Like you just said, that was a mind-blowing one for me as well, because as a parent of a child with special needs, it's not just about the child. And I think sometimes for other people looking in, it's all about the child. You lose your identity as a woman, as a wife, as a girlfriend, as a sister, as a mother to other children. And it all becomes about your child with special needs. But the reality of life is that can't happen when you're in a family unit and you want to nurture other relationships. So, Kris, can you tell me a little bit about why? I understand about how, during COVID, you went back and you retrained as this coach, and then you had this realization that this applies to parents. This is something that will help parents. What was it that gave you the drive to take your own experience and to be as visible as you are now in terms of the details of your life with Andrew and your other kids and John, and then also the desire to put that out there in a book and then to build a course? It's such a commitment. Where did that drive come from?
I don't know. But I do. I wish I had a great answer for that. I do know that during the pandemic, all of our kids came home, and we had just moved into a small home that was perfectly sized for my husband and me as empty nesters. Oh. And I'm really proud because we all did great.
You didn't kill each other. Go you.
We all stayed healthy.
Yeah.
But it was hard, and people got sad and people got depressed. And I remember my son, Andrew, who has these severe disabilities, but who had made a transition to be living on his own with direct care supports away from his family. I remember coming in one day and he was so sad, and we started talking, and I said, let's make a list. Let's make a list of all the people in our lives that we would never have met if you hadn't had this disability. And the list was long. And the list was filled with like amazing people, some of whom are like family now. It got me thinking about how there are a lot of people who don't have a long list like that.
Right.
And when I started to kind of just take an inventory of the things I'd learned from these people, I was kind of blown away. And in my coaching, where I'm working with parents, I have had clients who have really struggled with loneliness and isolation. They have not either had the connections, perhaps they haven't lived in a part of the world where there's a density of population. And so they are very isolated and they don't have access to some of the wisdom that we've really benefited from. And so when I was approached to co-write this book, I said, wow, I can write about my own experience, but what I'd really like to do is to collect the experiences of other people. And I think that started to drive me that if I am in a position where I am being offered the chance to share this wisdom, much of which is not my own, right? It comes from other people, then who am I to not do it? You know, there's that expression, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? I kind of just said, okay, this is scary, but I'll do it.
And it was scary for you, right? I mean, I think it's important for people to hear that because sometimes I think, particularly when people are so purpose-led, you know, I mean, this is the epitome of a purpose-led business. You know, you coach parents who, I mean, it must be the most incredibly satisfying service that you give people with your coaching. It is amazing. And creating the book and the course, it's very purpose-led. But that doesn't mean it isn't scary. And it doesn't mean that you don't still have all of the same insecurities around whether you can make it work, whether you can do it or not, does it?
I'm going to quote a podcast that shall remain nameless, but it's an amazing podcast host that you know very, very well. And what I heard on this podcast was that judgment is either invited or irrelevant.
Ugh.
And I think for the...
What genius said that? What genius said that, Kris?
So if we're talking about being scared,
yeah,
what was I scared of? And I was scared of somebody saying, well, who is she to say that? And so what I said was, well, who am I? I am a parent who has gone through the trenches like so many parents. But I'm also a parent now who has not just the life experience, but now also the coach's training and the experience working with people as a coach, which is like a breathtaking experience, right? And I'm somebody who has a desire to teach, but also to help people teach themselves, which I think is really important.
That's really important to you, actually, isn't it?
It is. I learn every day. Now I'm going to get emotional. I learn every day from my kids, my family members, other people in my life who don't even know they're teaching me. Yeah. And so I thought to myself, if I could do that for even just one or two people, then who am I to not do it? I don't know what's going to touch somebody. People touch me.
What a shift to be able to make, to go from, what if someone judges me and says, who is she to do that? To flip that paradigm and say, actually, who am I not to do this? Who do I think I am to withhold this from people I know it can help? What a huge shift. And thank goodness. The other thing as well, I think that you have that not everyone has is this network that you have so intentionally built throughout Andrew's life. You know, I love that exercise that you did with him during the pandemic of listing all the people that wouldn't be in your life, because I think this is an area where Andrew, I'm sure, would agree that he's benefited from your networking ability of building this network around you as a family unit of medical staff, of teachers, of caregivers, of, you know, all of the people that have come to be your network and who, when you came to create the course, what I found really interesting was the generosity that the people you approached showed you in terms of sharing their time and giving interviews with you, which I just think is absolutely testament to who you are as a woman and as a mother. I think, that not many people would be able to raise their hand and say, listen, I've had this idea. I'm going to create this resource. It's not going to all come from me. I'm going to bring all of you people together, and I want to tap into all your expertise and then stitch it together in this incredible learn fest. I don't think many women could pull that off.
Well, I think many women they might be able to, but maybe they're afraid to try. And I think for me, that was the big thing. I read something about some research that was done recently about asking for help. And it's always the people who need the help. We're really, I think, concerned about somebody declining a request. And most of the people out there that were interviewed for this piece of research, they were like, yeah, I'm happy to help. I love helping. So it's us. We're self-editing. And I never made like a conscious effort to build a network. But I think when you approach things, and I have just always approached life and relationships of like, oh, I know we're going to teach each other. I know I'm going to learn from these people. Then all of a sudden you find a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, well, if you guys will help me and let's just talk like we talk all the time anyway, I'm just going to record it. Then I can take that help. And people were quite vulnerable in these conversations. I mean, you remember when you start talking about your kids and your life as a parent. And I think I even asked, if you could go back and tell your younger self something. Wow, it's amazing what people shared.
Oh, it was a really rich, deep experience for me to have that interview with you for the program. And it was really important to me to keep in mind that what I said earlier, which was that this is the resource I wished I'd had. I wished I'd had something where I could see an example of the future and what my future could look like, because there were times in the darkest times with James. If someone had said to me at some point, you'll be running a really successful coaching business and you'll have a podcast and now 2 podcasts. And, I would have just been like, yeah, okay, in another lifetime, because my world was absolutely wrapped up with James. And I think one of the most inspiring things that you have done with this program is to give a beacon of hope as well for parents who are in the weeds of going through it.
The other night, my husband and I decided to watch some home movies. Honestly, we'd watched a very sad film on TV, and I said, I can't go to bed. I need something uplifting. Can we just throw on like some old home movies? It was Easter. We had 3 kids under the age of 5. And the middle one, my son Andrew, was in a full body cast with his legs in, like from his ankles up to his chest. He had this special orthopedic surgery, which a lot of young children with cerebral palsy have. And he was literally, my husband said, he looks like a Y. He was in this body cast. And we were doing an Easter egg hunt in the front yard with all these kids. And carrying him around. Of course, I said to my husband, why are we watching this? I wanted to be uplifted. And my husband started to laugh. I said, it was so hard, John. It was so hard. And we started laughing and we said, yeah, and you don't even remember it. You don't even realize, like now you look back and it's 20 years later and you don't even remember how hard it was.
Right.
That's what I was thinking of as you were talking about, because when you're in the midst of it, you just think this is my normal and you don't realize how hard it is and how stressed out you are and how challenging compared to so many other people around you. You just do it because that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
I'm delighted that we are going to be able to, give this to people and have them have the reassurance, the support, the encouragement, the hope that you're going to be able to laugh at things. You're going to be able to get through this. It's going to be okay.
And you're so right. At the time, if someone had told me back then that one day it would be different, I think I would have found it hard to believe it. But having this resource of hearing from the horse's mouth, from people actually describing what their experience was and where they are now, I now have the most beautiful relationship with my son. I have him home every other weekend. It's, and he wouldn't want it to be different than that. And I wouldn't, one of the big things for me when James was really small was I can't imagine ever being able to let someone else take care of him. That was huge for me. And then of course there came a time when I actually couldn't imagine being able to carry on keep taking care of him. So that was a switcheroo. Sure. And, both of those times were hard. Both had their own challenges.
We have, in just the US, we have 5 million people with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are being cared by their parents.
Yeah.
And their parents are aging. And so when you talk about, I couldn't imagine a time, part of what happens is that parents become so entrenched in the day-to-day that they don't think about the fact that in a flash, their son is going to be 25. He's going to be 6'2". Their daughter is going to need 2 people to lift her. So part of what this course does is, in addition to offering hope and encouragement and support, it also, I think, tries to get parents to think ahead a little bit and to not be so afraid and to know that they can take a couple of steps in that direction, and every step is going to help them when they get to where you and I are, which is parents of adults, which is a very different situation than parents of young kids with disabilities.
Yeah, it really is. It absolutely is. It has its own challenges sometimes. And I think one of the things I love about, and this goes for your book and for the program as well, for the course as well, is that this is not a saccharine, everything's fine. We're just going to put a big smile on our faces and everything will be fine. It's not that kind of thing at all. It's absolutely optimistic. It's absolutely full of hope and reassurance and guidance, but it isn't a kind of it's not joy washing, which I think I may have just made up that word. I don't know if that, or is that
I like it.
A thing? I like it too.
I don't know. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that was important to you, wasn't it? To have the program be very real.
Yes. And I will tell you that when I went through my coach's training, I became obsessed with this concept of polarities, where we go through life and we often see things as an either or, as a black and a white, as I'm going to take care of my kid and focus on my kid, or I'm going to take time for myself, would be an example.
Yep.
I'm going to do everything myself, or I'm going to delegate. Yep. What we know is that in most cases, it's a blend of the two, right? And the whole thing about polarities is you got to figure out how to blend them, and what does that braiding of the two look like? And for me, I really wanted the book to be a braiding of the two. I want people to know that I am a better person because of my kid, all my kids. But I also want them to know, as you said before, it's still hard. It's not like everything became easy. I think we talk about this is not making things easy. It's just making them less hard.
Yes. It's not about making things easy. It's about making them less hard. And that's what I really love I love that about you as a person. And I love it definitely about your work, is that you're so honest and truthful. And when I think back to when we started working together, there were a lot of things that came up for you around being scared to go all in, being scared to put everything out there. I think that was definitely something that you wrestled with at the beginning. And we know why. We alluded to it earlier. Some of it was around this fear of judgment, or of perhaps a little imposter syndrome of, am I trying to be something I'm not, by saying, hey, I'm going to be an author, I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to host a program that's going to change lives. That felt very big to you, didn't it?
Yeah. And, it still feels big. I mean, it still feels big. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I think we're afraid to try, because if we try and we fail, well, then, what are we?
Yeah.
You know what? If I write this book and nobody buys it, then I'm just somebody that shared stories and some strategies, and it's bound to help one person.
I think you already know that it's helped more than one person.
Right. Yeah, it's been really, really rewarding. And the thing I didn't expect that I really love is that I knew a lot of these stories because I had heard them already from people I knew. So I knew that they were going to be impactful because these people are impactful. They've impacted my life. But what I didn't realize is that parents of kids without disabilities were going to write to me and say, Kris, so much of what you guys wrote about in this book, it's applicable to parents of all kids or grandparents. Or the other day, I had a doctor say to me, I wish that I had had this book when I was in the beginning of my medical training, because it really helps explain the families that I'm working with.
Yeah. Teachers as well. I think it's almost required reading, I think, to get an insight into families.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Oh, yeah.
So, Jill, you talked about our conversation when I interviewed you for the course, and you said that it brought up things for you. Can you speak to that at all? Do you, as somebody who maybe hadn't fully embraced another normal in some way, what was that?
Oh, God, what a good question. I'm going to give you a very, very honest answer to this. Part of what it brought up for me was a little bit of sadness. And the sadness was that I didn't have this available for me. So, for example, the building a network around you, I really didn't do that. I wasn't one of the mums at the school who were in this like group. You know, I always worked for a start. I worked as well as James. So every minute James was at school, I was working, you know, I wasn't at home. And, you know, there were certainly some of the mums. So James went to a special needs school. So all of the mums would be in a group and often would meet up during school time. And I never was really part of that group. I didn't have that network of other mums. I had a couple of fellow special needs mums that I was kind of friendly with, but I wasn't really in that group. I didn't have this big network around me. I don't think I was good at asking for what I needed back then. I think I got much better at it as James got older. And certainly as he turned into adulthood and I was fighting for where I wanted him to live, I was beyond good at asking for what I wanted. But I think when he was first diagnosed and as a small child, I don't think I was. So again, you know, looking at the course now and the book and realizing, because that was pre-internet as well when James was little. And realizing how little resource we had back then and how small the window was that I had on the wider world of disability and being a parent of a special needs child. It was quite isolating. So this mixture of sadness for myself and absolute joy for other mothers who are now coming up through that same experience, that there is help for them, there is more available. And I just think what makes embracing another normal so different is the realness of it, because it is real interviews with real people who have been through real experiences. There is nothing, this isn't you kind of lecturing around some theoretical ideas that you have around best practice or something like that. You know, it's just not that at all. It's so grounded. It's practical, but it's also very inspiring and uplifting at the same time. And I think that's what parents who are in the weeds of raising a child with special needs, that's what they need. They have to have the evidence that things are gonna, one, get better or get different. Because sometimes that's what happens, is that things get different, and that's okay, you know, and that there is hope and that there is support. All of those things. I'm just so happy that that does exist now for other people. And I think it's amazing that you've brought that to life.
I was talking to a family last week, and their son is about 10 years younger than my son. And he's struggling with things. And I said, I'm not here to tell you that the struggle will not continue. All I'm going to tell you is that when I look at my kid at his age now, and I think 10 years ago, would I have predicted that he was going to be where he is, that he was going to be the kind of person that he is, that we were going to have the kind of relation? It's very hard to plan for a future when you have no sense. And people will say, well, we never really know what the future is going to be or what our kids, but let's be clear. Major disabilities, they make it more complicated to predict.
They do.
They just do.
They absolutely
Yeah.
do. Yeah, because so much is out of our control.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say, Jill, when you speak to, parents and yourself not really having that network, and I think as parents, we develop skills to advocate and push for what our kids need. Mm-hmm. But we also think that, if I'm a good parent, I don't maybe need some of these other things. Yeah. And what I heard time and time again in these interviews and what people will see in the course is, no. You're only human. You need everything that somebody else might need. Mm-hmm. And the fact that you have additional responsibilities for your child does not preclude you from wanting to get those needs fulfilled. Doesn't make you better to just push those needs aside.
That's such a good point. You're absolutely right. And I think it's like I was saying earlier, it does become all about your child for a long time, and a reminder that it doesn't have to be that way, because it doesn't have to be that way. And that, I think, is a very refreshing message that comes across loud and clear in what you do and what you speak to. And it doesn't dilute the care or the love that you have for your child. In fact, if anything, for me, it deepens it, because you have more capacity.
Mm-hmm. We are complicated beings, us humans. And our role as parents is one of many roles. Mm. And, you talked before about needing to work all the time. Mm. I was talking to a father the other day. It was 4:00 in the morning, his time. I said, do you always start your day at 4? He said, yeah, because when my kid wakes up, it's all over. So I get my best work done between 4 and 7. Like, this is the world people live in.
That's the reality.
Yeah, we have to be able to say, yes, this is the world I live in, and there's a way for me to prosper and thrive in this world, despite the fact that it's hard. And part of the way I do that is to access resources and understand maybe what other people have been through and learn from them, and apply whatever I learn as much as I can to my own life.
Absolutely. I'm interested. I know that one person that you interviewed for the program was Andrew. What was that like?
Well, I'll start by saying, when you were talking before about the program having parents in it, one of the things I love the most about this program is that it has the voices of self-advocates in it.
Yes, you're so right. It is amazing.
They were the best and most enjoyable conversations, because most of them were incredibly honest. And the question I loved was, well, what did your parents do that drove you crazy?
I love it.
I got some really good answers. Andrew is a wise old soul sometimes, and we talk a lot in my family. So the biggest thing for him was that he was, being recorded. He's also, because of his cerebral palsy, his delivery, can be kind of slow. And, I tell people in the course, you can moderate the speed of the interviews. At one point, Andrew is really good when you put him on triple speed. It was really fun. It was really enjoyable to hear his take on things, his perspective. I think one of the things I said is, if I had 100 parents in a room, what would you want to be able to tell them? And these young people, they were very honest and candid.
Can you share with us maybe one or two of the answers?
Sure. So one of my favorites is something that a young woman, Sarah, said, where she talked about her parents and her parents always wanting what was best for her, and lots of encouragement to improve her physical abilities. But she's in her early 30s now. And she said, I want to use my wheelchair more. That was hard for my parents. My parents wanted me to walk more. It was hard for us to even have conversations around how much more I was willing to try. She's much more eloquent than I am, but she was really candid about recommending to parents that they think about their dreams, and also have consideration for their children's dreams. And obviously, this depends greatly on your child's ability to express him or herself, their intellectual ability to have goals and dreams.
Of course. Yeah.
But I think, again, this is one of those situations where this applies to everyone, right? I shouldn't have my dreams for my husband that are not his dreams.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And dreams for my other kids.
I have a habit of doing that as well. I have a really bad, and I do it to Dave, my partner, and I definitely for James, I project onto James so much around what he will like, or he won't like that, or he will like that. And, and I have to remind myself all the time, I must not limit his experience of life based on what I think he will or won't like. He can try things. He can find out if he does or doesn't like things. Oh, apart from one time when the care homes asked whether I thought James would like a bungee jump. It's like, are you mad? Will you act? And I think afterwards I realised I think they were joking, but I'm still not 100% sure they were joking. And I just had this vision of them taking James up in an aeroplane and like pushing him out or something, or on the top of a bridge and dropping him off the bridge on a bungee. Like, I think that's a bit harsh. I'm not sure he can articulate. I'm not sure he's going to know what's coming.
You told me in one of our first conversations how hard it was to learn that your feelings are not your child's feelings.
Oh my gosh. So hard.
I shared that this morning in a conversation with somebody who was struggling with a typical child. Your feelings, what you're afraid of, what you want for them, how you react, that's not necessarily how they're feeling.
I remember when James first went into residential care, I can remember just torturing myself with this image of James laying in bed crying, not knowing where I was, and missing me and missing home. And, and I had to really think about that afterwards and realize that actually, you know what? James is probably laying there thinking, I wonder, like, when am I getting my breakfast? That will be his main concern. It's not going to be anything about missing me. It will be food related. It's a huge lesson. Definitely.
One of the things I love about life is that it's a series of phases.
Yeah.
Just when you think you've got it figured out, you realize, I've moved into the next phase.
Oh my goodness. That is so true. It's true for everyone. But I think actually for parents of kids with special needs, it's very markedly true. Like it's one phase of particular set of challenges gets replaced by another particular set of challenges. And sometimes they're easier and sometimes they're not. But there is movement. There is movement through life. Nothing holds back time. And I think that we can now share with parents that we can look back now and just be so grateful at the relationship we have with our kids now. And not everyone's experience is the same as ours either. And I'm really mindful of that too. But I think what's priceless about what you've created, Kris, with Another Normal is the hope and the optimism that it brings.
Well, thank you. I hope so.
I know so. So if someone is listening and they either have a child themselves and are interested in going through this program that you've created, or perhaps they know someone who might be interested, or they potentially have connections where it could be useful to be introduced into an education environment or a health environment, something like that. I'm just thinking that, I'm really, really keen for this to get as far and wide as possible, just for all the reasons I've already said, that I know how much this is going to help people. So I really want this to go far and wide. But if someone is interested in going through the program, how can they do that? What's their next step?
It's very easy. I have a website, which is my name, krisburbank.com, and they can go to the website and in the header, there's an opportunity to learn with Kris, and there's all kinds of information about the course and the book and how to contact me. I'm like you, Jill. I love that this is now available for parents. I, at the same time, really hope that other entities, organizations, even employers will have an interest in making this available to parents through their own employee networks and human resource benefits departments. Parents experience things at home and it impacts how they show up at work, right? All caregivers. And the sooner that we realize that as a society and we support them in different ways, the more we're going to be able to leverage what they can contribute to the organizations that they're a part of, let alone make their family lives happier.
Absolutely right. And this is something, that I think organizations are getting better at recognizing that they need to create a culture of inclusivity and a culture where no matter what challenges people are facing outside of the workplace, they are welcomed into the workplace and things are made as easy for them as they possibly can. So I think this is a brilliant resource for organizations to offer. So I'm going to put links in the show notes. And where else can people connect with you, Kris? I think you're on Facebook, I believe. I'll put all of the links in the show notes for sure.
And I also have a free newsletter that I send out called Another Normal, and people can sign up on the website for that as well.
Oh, excellent. I will definitely put the link in because that is a really amazing resource. So this is something that Kris puts a lot of work into. I know that. And it's an incredible resource for parents. I think there are a lot of parents out there that will be lost without that coming, as you're like their source of reliable information.
Well, I love it. The newsletter highlights all kinds of information on things to help young people grow and thrive. And so it's for parents, but it's also, it's everything from travel to sexuality to housing and employment. And it's also, again, about how to take care of yourself and to ask yourself the kinds of questions that lead you to build a full life as a parent, but also as a person.
And you have absolutely done that. And I think I have too. And that is what's possible for parents. It is possible for us to have full lives, full, really satisfying lives and great relationships with our kids, whatever that other normal looks like for us.
Yeah. Works in progress.
Yes, work in progress for sure. Thank you for coming on the show. And I hope you'll come back again.
Love to.
Because I could talk with you about this topic all day, that. But I do think it is something that's close to both our hearts. And, if there's any way I can get this message out a bit further, a little bit wider each time, I want to do that. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye for now. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that getting our heads together this week has filled your mind with what's possible. If you love the show, would you do me a massive favour, please? Would you leave a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts? It would really help me put more heads together, reach more ears and expand more minds. Until next week, bye for now.